Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the last episode, we looked at how connection is important before correcting your child. We looked at ways to love, respect, and show compassion to our children. While loving our children is so important, enforcing discipline is also as important as love. Love and discipline should be side by side. One shouldn't be without the other. Among the most important things in our family is having structure in our households. Ironically, children resent routine and schedules, and while it is proven scientifically that in order for them to flourish psychologically and physically, they need routine in their lives. A routine in their lives makes them feel safe and in control of what they are doing. A literal example is having a routine of each day and having a routine for holidays. For example, when they wake up, they should first brush their teeth or take a shower, then go to pray, go eat their breakfast, etc. Whenever a child wakes up, they know what they're supposed to do. We have a lot of chaos in the mornings in our household, and most noise is during the morning before the kids leave for school. You would hear fathers or mothers shouting, "Why haven't you worn your shoes?" or "Why haven't you worn your socks?" or "You haven't finished your breakfast. Where is your bag? Where is your homework?" These squabbles can be helped a lot by having a routine in our houses and being consistent in them. On that note, we should create routines and stick to them to avoid chaos in our houses, and also be flexible with them and not be rigid like in the authoritarian parenting. For example, if children are supposed to sleep at 8 or 8:30 or 9 each day, and their grandmother has come over or it's a holiday, we can extend grace to them and be flexible with the rules. After setting a routine in our household, we should have realistic expectations from our children. This means that we treat children age appropriately. When they behave inappropriately, we have different modes of discipline according to their age, tailored to their age. There's a famous saying attributed to Ali radiallahu anhu, which goes, "Play with your children the first 7 years, then teach them the next 7 years, then advise them the next 7 years." This means that you play with your 4, your 2, your 7-year-old. You play with them in order for their brain to develop in a healthy way. If you set rules for a 7 or a 4-year-old and they break the rule, you will not discipline them the same way as an 8-year-old. Just like in the Sunnah, where the Prophet ﷺ advises us to teach our children to pray when they are 7 to 10 and to beat them when they're 10 if they do not pray. This is an example from our Sunnah, subhanallah, on how we should deal with children. We extend mercy for 3 years, meaning you should be merciful to them, teaching them patiently salah from 7 to 10, and only when they reach 10 should they get in trouble for not praying at all. We sometimes, as parents, we are so unrealistic in the way we deal with our children. For example, if you have decorations in the house, and a 2-year-old goes and breaks them or throws them, we get angry sometimes, and we might even smack or hit the child who is only 2 years old. While developmentally, this is an important phase for her. She is in the phase, or he is in the phase of exploring the world around her. Just like how a 1-year-old can throw their toy 10 times or 20 times, they're learning how the world works. They want to see the texture of the toy. They want to hear how the toy sounds, and how else can they learn about the environment if they're not exploring. Another example is when you're dealing with a 4-year-old boy who is known to be so energetic and is always running from one place to another, and you go with them to the restaurant and you expect them to sit still. That is an unrealistic expectations. What does it mean that you won't go to the restaurant with them? No, but you should go somewhere that will allow them to explore their environment. For example, you can choose a restaurant where there's a huge space where they can run around. So this is what it means to have clear expectations with our children, and it will help us be peaceful in our parenting, because we will be able to foresee what can happen if we are being realistic to age-appropriate behaviors from our children. Thirdly, it is very crucial for us to have clear rules and clear consequences for our children. Our child should not have to guess what they need to do in order our child should not have to guess what they need to do in order to follow the rules. The rules should be concise and short. Children are very simple and they have very simple minds. For example, I recently asked my son to bring me a glass of water, who is 6-year-old, and he brought me a glass of water only. It didn't have any water in it. And I had to tell him, could you please put water in the glass? And he was like, okay. If I overreacted, I would have been angry at why he bought me a glass of water without water in it. But he is only a 6-year-old child who needs clear instructions. Similarly, when you're setting the rules and the consequences, it is good if you involve them in the rule-making process. You talk to them and ask them what they prefer as a consequence when they break certain rules. Not all the rules, but rules that this can be done on. For example, when you're setting this screen time limit, if you have limits in your house, or you are talking about being early for school, you ask them what will happen if we know that we need to be early to school, or we need to know that you only have 4 or 2 or 1 hour of screen time. What happens if you extend it? Then you hear the ideas. You might be surprised at how creative children are. They might even give themselves more harsh consequences than what you would have given them. And when they break them, you go back to the drawing board, just like how in the Quran and Sunnah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advises us to go back to the Quran and Sunnah when you have conflicts. And this is what you'll be doing in your house. You've already set a clear guideline of rules and regulations, and if somebody breaks them, you go back to the guideline, which they themselves agreed on, so no squabbles. This helps us to set goals for our children and helps us to shape them into who we want them to become. When you're setting goals, be general, because we have already considered age appropriateness, and we already have set a routine for them which is easy for them to follow. So when we are setting rules, we become general and think of what we want our children to become. For example, if you want your children to become successful academically, you set a routine and that is age conscious. You put for them half an hour of studying or 1 hour according to their age, and you become consistent in your routine. And with this last point that you're talking about, you become clear in the rules and the consequences of not doing that. We are likely to raise more confident and successful children if we do this, inshallah. Lastly, we should remain consistent and calm in how we deal with our children and how we enforce the rules and the consequences that we have laid down on them. For example, this is where a lot of trouble happens. I'm sure you can all relate. When you turn off the TV or you take away a tablet, the child mostly acts irrational or starts bargaining. Can I have please 5 more minutes? Can I have 1 hour? I haven't finished. I didn't even enjoy what I was watching. I need to watch another episode. You remaining calm and consistent looks like, I understand. You saying something like, I understand that you are upset and you would love to watch the episode, and it was so interesting, wasn't it? Again, by doing this, you are connecting with their child. They feel like you understand their struggle and what they are going through, and this makes it easy to get through to them. Then you firmly hold your boundary and you say, I'm so sorry about that, but it's time to sleep right now. I can help you turn off the TV, or you can turn it off yourself. And you wait for them to turn off the TV. If they don't, you turn off the TV calmly without getting angry. What happens is that misbehavior triggers us and we overreact and we get so angry and we say things like, what's wrong with you? You do this to me every day. When it's time to turn off the TV, I expect you to turn it off right now. Turn it off and go. And we start shouting. Remaining clear and consistent makes us ourselves. When I shout at my children, I notice that I always get a sore throat, or I feel like my throat is drying up. It gives you a lot of peace when you're doing this gentle parenting thing. So remaining clear and consistent helps you as a parent, and also helps the child because they're receiving kindness and love from you, and they're receiving understanding from you. So it goes both ways. It's helpful to you and it's helpful to your child. Also, what helps is going to when you're issuing instructions, if you want to remain consistent and calm, one of the most effective ways is to go to their level when you're talking to them. For example, if you're sending them to do something, or you are reminding them you're holding a boundary and you're reminding them it's time to go sleep, you do not shout it from the kitchen. You go to their, I know it's hard work, but this is what we need to do in order to be effective. You go to their level, touch their hand or their shoulder, and this is showing love with discipline. This is discipline and love side by side. You hold their shoulder and you say, it's time to go sleep, or it's you're remaining with 5 minutes of doing whatever you're doing, playing, and when you're done, I will call you to go and sleep, or to pick up your toys. And you firmly hold your boundary without shouting and getting angry and frustrated. And sometimes it's not easy because children are overly stimulated, or they're tired, or they're sleepy, tired, hungry, sleepy, and they don't want to do what will help them, which is go sleep. And we should hold mercy for them, because we have moods ourselves, and sometimes when we get hungry, we get irritable, but we do not understand this when it happens to children. All we do is get triggered and angry and feel like they're disrespecting us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in charge of our kids, and we should always remain confident and know that we are in authority. It's harder said than done, but if we do this, we will hardly get triggered by their misbehavior, because their misbehavior triggers in us feelings of disrespect from our children, and this is what most of the time makes us get triggered and react harshly or rudely, which at the end of the day is not effective. In order for us to be effective, we need that our children need to feel understood, and they need to sense calmness from us. Just like when somebody shouts at you a command or speaks to you rudely, you will focus on the rudeness and the harshness, and your body, your mind, your prefrontal cortex will shut off, which is the decision making and rational part of your brain. It will shut off, and your body will go to flight or fight mode. Same with our children. These things happen to them. They go into flight or fight mode, and they start being defensive or being more aggressive and irrational, which pulls us into a cycle of them being aggressive, emotional, irrational, and us being more and more angry, which escalates, and we end up hitting them or shouting more, and it becomes chaos. So for us to have peace and influence our children in a positive manner, we need to be conscious of ourselves and our emotions and our reactions, and be confident that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already put us in charge of these children. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi." All of you are shepherds, and each of you is responsible for your flock. We are responsible for raising our children and enhancing and influencing good manners and behavior on them, so that they can become capable adults who are responsible, successful, and who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A Harvard study which ran for 75 years, compiling data for 75 years, showed that children who are the most successful and happy come from households which they were loving, they come from loving households, and households which responsibility was given to them. They used to do chores when they were young, and they were loved and cared for, which attunes to all what we have been talking about. We need to have a connection, which is love, and we need to have a routine and structure, which is also giving them responsibility and chores in our houses, inshallah. And let's be mindful when we are enforcing rules and consequences to teach them that all of our life is according to the Quran and Sunnah. For example, when you tell them to brush, you say that we brush because al-Islamu nadhifun, Islam is a clean religion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us to be clean Muslims. No hitting your brother or sister, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not love oppression.